Welcome to another exciting episode of the Way Up podcast with your host, Geoff Knoll. Today we have the privilege of sitting down with a true entrepreneur extraordinaire, Mitch Ribak. Mitch is a man of many titles and experiences, having owned a staggering 22 businesses throughout his life. From the adrenaline-fueled world of paintball to the complexities of online dating services and real estate brokerages, Mitch has done it all. But what truly sets Mitch apart is he's not just a business owner. He's a published author. He's earned the nickname the Godfather of Lead Conversion. And in this episode, we delve deep into Mitch's remarkable story, from building empires to experiencing setbacks, and how he's not only survived, but thrived in the face of adversity. This is a must-listen episode for anyone seeking to climb their way up in the world of business and entrepreneurship. The Way Up podcast is sponsored by me. I'm a real estate broker in the state of Missouri, and I believe that this message is worth my investment. Hang with us till the end. I know you won't be disappointed. I am really excited to be here with my friend Mitch Ribak. Mitch is with eXp Realty, and he has built all kinds of incredible businesses in his life. I'm going to let him expand on that just a little bit, but thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing some of your story with us today, Mitch.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I love doing these things. So much fun.
Yeah, no, it's great getting to get into what made you who you are. So that's what this show is about. I wanted to just ask you a few questions, and I'm going to start with, what is something that is a fact that people probably don't know about you that know you?
Well, let's see. It's a lot of things that, well, I don't know. My story's out there pretty good. I was the first online dating service. That's always a good one.
That is
Um,
a good one.
that's a good one. I played in a rock band for many years, and I had hair down in my middle of my butt, my middle of my back.
What instrument did you play? I just saw you had a guitar in your hand.
Yeah. I've been a guitar player for 49 years. Crazy.
Heck yeah. That's awesome, man. I was a bass player in a Christian rock band when I was in high school.
That's,
We were together for like 7 years until I got married to my first wife. I moved away,
that's
ruined the
funny.
band.
Yeah, we did 8, and I left because of a girl too. So
Women.
crazy. Yeah, but I just funny story. I literally last week our whole band got back together. We haven't been together for 40 years.
Wow. And you guys, did you
So
play a show?
no, we didn't. So me and the drummer wanted to play. The other guys' skills have diminished, and so they didn't want to be embarrassed on stage, and they didn't want any of the old girlfriends coming out and seeing him with their wives there.
Yeah, no,
So
I understand that. And I saw you were playing, so that's kind of cool for me to see that you're still doing that. I have my guitar, I have my bass. I played bass in the band. I never play it, and my skills have absolutely diminished from just not doing it.
yeah, yeah. So about 9 months ago, so I've been playing 49 years. I was always when I was a kid, I was actually not that good, but I was the good looking one in the band that got all the girls, so they kept me, right. And then as I got a little better over the years, it got better, and then they fell off. I mean, I've just been playing by myself for so many years. And then 9 months ago, I said, I've leveled up in every aspect of my life except my guitar. So I hired a guitar coach, just like you would for business, and pay a stupid amount of money for it. And my skill level in the last 9 months is probably 5 times better than I ever was.
Wow, that
Yeah,
is super cool to know. I
it's really fun. I
we
love it.
got we got my son a keyboard a few years ago for Christmas, and he never really got into it and never really played it. But I played for a couple of months. I played, and I picked up quite a bit in a couple of months. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I like it. But then I quit playing it too, and we decided to sell it because it sat here collecting
Yeah,
dust.
right. But you talk about building your life and what builds success and stuff like that. Part of that is having an outlet, right? And you can't go through life just drilling and drilling and drilling. It doesn't work. And I'm sure it works for some people. It didn't work for me. Um, but my guitar, I tell you, my guitar has been the only constant in my life since I was 13. I've been having kids, divorce, my parents dying, friends dying, marriage again, and just every part of life brings in a new song. And it's kind of cool. Like everything in my life is always giving me back to my guitar. And I don't think I've ever gone more than 2 months without playing my guitar in my lifetime.
That's awesome.
Difference
That's
is now I actually just like business. I follow patterns, I follow predictable things, and I follow systems to make me a better guitar player, which is what we do in business, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great move into. I just want to hear your story, Mitch. Where did you start? And what was the process and the journey to get where you are today? And to tell a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'll keep this as brief because it's a pretty long story, but I'll keep it as brief as I can. Started my first business at 19. Well, maybe even take it back. Barely made it out of high school and got kicked out of college. Um, went back to college and realized I had a reading disability. So that was interesting. While I worked for Pfizer in the lab there while I was going to school for 2 years, and I got my associate's degree a couple of years later, and then but that year I grossed $1 million in one of my businesses. So I said, why do I go to college to meet girls and have parties? I go, well, I got $1 million this year. I can do whatever I want. But my first business was a modular home business, which is funny since I'm in real estate now, right? I didn't enjoy it at all. I did it for a few months, made about $10,000 in 2 months, which, by the way, in 1970 and 1981, I think that was a lot of money. But didn't like it. And then at 23 years old, started a paintball business. And I was the third paintball business in the country. There was one mobile paintball. And they used to go drive around the country playing paintball. That's how I learned about it. And then there was a company in Tennessee, and then there was myself. And we would run 150 people every Saturday, 150 people every Sunday, and literally make work 7 months of a year, 3 days a week, and make $1 million cash a year. It
Wow.
was ridiculous, and it was so much fun. And then we had some issues. My best friend, who was my business partner, stole a couple $100,000. So we're going to get into a partnership there. Best friends should be your partner. And we closed the company. I bought a flower business. That was kind of boring. So then I decided to buy a restaurant because like everybody should own a restaurant, right? So it took me a year before I lost everything I ever had. and and it was an interesting time because the same day I ended up in the hospital from stress, and the same day my dad ended up on the heart transplant list. He had been sick for many years, and so we were both sitting there. I was in the hospital. He was visiting me, in the thing, and I decided that moment to close the restaurant. Hard decision because I knew I was going to go broke. And then I spent every day with my dad for the next 4 months until he did get the heart transplant, but he died 2 weeks later, unfortunately. But the blessing of losing all my money was I got to spend 4 months with my dad every single day, 8 hours a day.
How,
Priceless, right?
how old were you at that point?
29,
29 years old.
29,
Wow.
29. And so then I was struggling. I realized the only time in my life I mean, I've struggled financially before because as an entrepreneur, you make money, you lose money. It's part of the game. But I was emotionally struggling because my dad and I were very close, and losing my dad and all my money. Everything I touched up to that point turned to gold. So I've never lost anything. And then my dad and again were really close. So I had about a year and a half, and I was just doing odd things to make money and pay the bills, which I did. And then I went on a job interview. I probably shouldn't say this in public, but I will. I went on a job interview for a software company, and I remember I had an associate's degree. So they looked at me and they said, "We can't hire you because you don't have a bachelor's degree." And then she looked me straight in the eyes and says, "But we don't check." So I went home and updated my resume to bachelor degree. Went on a job interview for a cold call telemarketing manager for a dating service, Great Expectations franchise, which is one of the biggest dating services in the country back then. And got the job. Within 6 months. I was running the company and took over the company running it. And within a year and a half, maybe two, I started my own dating service called Perfect Mates. And this is right around now. We're in the 1994 range. And this is when AOL was started sending out all their little discs back then about
I
doing
remember
AOL.
those.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I said, wow, wouldn't it be cool if they could do my dating service at home instead of having come to my office? I had a 5,000 square foot office. Couldn't do it. So if you remember, in Massachusetts back then was the Silicon Valley of the day, right? So you couldn't do it. It took me a year to find a company to do it. There's a program called Cold Fusion, which allowed you to do database integration of the internet. And so literally within a few more months, I in 1995, I converted my regular dating service to an online dating service, becoming the first online dating service. So that was kind of cool. Raised a few $1 million, but there was no way to market like there is today. Today, you get online on Google and do international marketing for very little money, right? So I decided to private label it for the radio and TV industry because I did a lot of media buys. In this time period, I had an ad agency and some other stuff. I've had multiple businesses along the way that I did just to keep the bills paid, right? And so anyway, we ended up by 1998. I had 1999, maybe 98. I had 650 media affiliates. We had 6 million people a month coming to the websites. I think it was 97 that Match.com came to me to buy them, and I said no. And In 1999, we got an offer for $80 million for the company. And that was kind of a fun little quick story I'll share is they called me, this company, public company called me from Dallas, said, Mitch, can you come meet with us? And we sat down and they're like, look, we're going to offer you $50 million. We don't really want your company as much as we want you and what you've been able to do over the last few years. I get, well, I wouldn't do it for less than $80 million. And they said, well, we can't do it. And by the way, I don't know where that came from. It just came out. But once you negotiate, you can't go back, right? So I got up and left. And about 10 minutes after I drove away, they called me back, said, all right, we'll give you the 80 million. So anyway, so part of my deal was I had to lower my expenses. And I was doing a radio show out of Universal Studios at the time on 45 radio stations around the country called Ask Mitch the Date Doctor. So if you ever need dating advice, I know lots of people and lots of good advice. But anyway, so I just started driving around Florida and checking out Florida, and I ended up in Merritt Island, Florida, where I live today. The hard part of that is, we moved the company down, and within a year and a half, within April of 2000, so I moved down in July of 99. In April of 2000, the internet bubble burst. I was supposed to close in June. I lost $82 million in about 6 weeks. It was a really bad day.
That seems like a really bad day.
Really bad. Well, it was 3 days. It was 3 days that I didn't get out of bed, bawled my eyes out, being totally honest. I was 40 years old. I didn't know what to do, and still was running the company because the company didn't disappear because the deal fell apart. We still had money left, and we ran out of money about a year and a half later, about a year later, in 2001. So I took my real estate license. My friend Joe convinced me to get my real estate license. He was the lead guitar player in my band. His family was worth about $100 million in hotels and shopping plazas. And he's like, Mitch, you'd be really good at it. I'm like, I don't like realtors. Why would I do that? And so he's like, you'd just be good at it. Go do it. And so we did it. And I found real estate to be kind of like the easiest thing I've done besides paintball. I sold my first house in 5 days. And by the way, my anniversary was yesterday. It was my 22-year anniversary in real estate. My second day in real estate was 9/11, right, when it happened. So I lasted about a half hour before I went to the blood bank and stood in line to give blood because we all freaked out that day, right? And like I said, sold my first house on that Saturday. And then sold 36 homes my first year, 50 my second year, 80 my third year, 80 my fourth year. Started my brokerage in 2005 with 6 agents, built that up to 120 agents. And then during that time period, became known as the Godfather of Internet Lead Conversion. I was the first guy to do forced registration on the website, which is funny because everybody does it now. And people would call me and yell at me, like realtors, not consumers. I can't believe you make people register on your website. I'm like, well, why don't you? I go, if I'm going to spend $1,000 a month marketing my website, I'm going to get leads. Oh, they'll never use you. I go, well, 15% register. And anyway, so I built this gigantic business just from that. And then with a coaching business, I'm coaching people how to do that. I've coached some of the biggest companies in the world on their internet programs. And one of my good friends, Dennis D'Souza, I coached him. He was an internet lead in 2004. And I taught him how to do all my stuff. And he became the #1 Remax team in California because of it. And then I started doing ISAs for lead conversion back in 2006. So before anybody else used them for lead conversion, I built a whole system of ISAs and all that stuff. So we had 3 or 4 of those always. And we were doing about 700 transactions a year, almost all of them from the internet. And it was crazy. It was just crazy fun. So in 2016, I was 56 years old, and my dad was 58 when he died, like I said earlier. And I started really thinking about my life and say, look, I'm working 80 or 100 hours a week. The dirty little secret about brokerages, they don't make any money. Like all the brokers out there, I talk to brokers every day. Very few of them make any money. And I was making an average of 50 to $75,000 profit a year with 120 agents. My best year, I made 200 grand. If I didn't have my coaching business, my ISA company that I had at the time, and all my consulting stuff, I would never have been able to pay the bills. And I still sold 20 to 30 homes a year, part time. So went to sell the company in 2016, and pretty excited about that. Got two offers from Remax and Century 21 for, good money, and sat down and negotiated with Century 21, and that's where I found out the little dirty secret about selling your company. There's all these little dirty secrets in real estate, right? It was they give you a little money the first year, a little money the second year. The final payment is about 70% of the money. However, it's based on retention of the original, at that time, 120 agents. And I won't tell you what I said because we're being videoed here, but it wasn't nice what I said to them. It was very, very, very few nice words I said to them, actually, a lot of swears. And because they wasted a lot of my time. And immediately came back, let go of 50 agents in about a week, and went to under about 60 or 65 agents because they were the ones costing me so much money that I was always trying to cultivate these new agents. But I had a whole support staff for new agents, training staff, the whole works. So, and then I called Jason Gessing, who at the time was the CEO of EXP, and we'd already met 3 times before. And I asked if he was going to be at Inman in January up in New York, and he said, "Yeah." I go, "Can we meet again?" I later found out, because we were really good friends now, that he didn't want to meet me that time because the last 3 times he didn't want to waste the hour with me because he knew I'd say no. But I had to do something because I didn't want to die and my family get nothing. So the problem with the brokerage is if you are the broker and there's nobody else in your family taking it over and you die, your family gets nothing. All the agents scatter away. So anyway, we met and I said my biggest problem is Tropical Realty is a big name, here locally, Tropical Realty Beachside. And I don't want to give that up. He said, "Well, just be Tropical Realty Beachside brokered by EXP." I kind of said to him, I think I might have said, "Why did you tell me that 2 years ago when we first started talking?" Because that was my holdback. My ego was there that I'm Tropical Realty, I'm a big broker, I'm really well known, I was the biggest independent broker, all the stuff we feed ourselves, right, to make us feel good about life. But anyways, we came back. I talked to my wife, and she's like, "Wait a minute. So let me get this straight. So you're selling it for 3.5 million, and now you're going to give it away?" I go, "Yeah." So she started doing her homework, and she looked at me. She goes, "Well, what do we have to lose?" I go, "The worst case scenario is I go back and I restart the company. The worst case scenario, I'll go back and sell homes." And at this point, I was very efficient in selling homes and learned how to sell 30 homes a year, working about 100 hours a week, a year, rather, 100 hours a year. So I sold, even up until 2 years ago, I sold 25, 30 homes a year, working no more than 100 hours a year. And so I teach that now a lot to everybody. People, all these people on this hamster wheel, I try to get them off the hamster wheel and how to understand how to be efficient in being a business person, not just a realtor, but being a business person. So anyways, we switched over June of 2017 with 40 agents. We lost a few in the switchover. And today we're at 2,200 agents, 49 states, 7 countries. And I tell people all the time, I go, I started a brokerage for leverage and freedom. And I hope I don't insult anybody, but what I got was babysitting in prison. And now I truly have leverage and freedom. I've been gone for a month, right? Mostly vacations for the past month, and I haven't missed a beat. Nothing's changed. So it's changed my life. It's changed my family's life. It's changed so many of my agents' lives. I'm so glad we did it. But at the time, we were the biggest broker to do it. So everybody was like a little freaked out about it. But of course, EXP liked it because it opened a whole new door and a whole new avenue of bringing on brokers and using me as a catalyst to do that. And that's what they did. And I was glad to do that. So that's kind of where I'm. I mean, I've got other things going on right now, but my main job right now is coaching. I used to be $1,500 an hour for coaching. Now I don't charge, and I don't care who you are. I don't try to. I don't. It's funny. People are like, "Well, you're just a recruiter." I'm like, no, actually, I haven't actually called one person to join EXP yet. So I literally attract people by helping people.
Yeah.
Basically.
You're
So that's my
providing
story.
you're providing value. So it's your story, and it's exciting that, I just heard you say you've built and lost empires and come back up. But I want to hear, what is something that you can identify that positioned you to be successful in your life? Maybe it's a trait,
Sure.
a character, maybe something that was
No.
modeled to you by a parent. But what is
Yeah.
something you can identify?
So I almost died at 17 years old, and that was my catalyst of everything in my life. Like that gave me mindset. It made me understand mindset. I didn't understand it actually until I was 50, totally, because I cured myself of burns in 2.5 weeks, which is physically not possible to do. I did it mentally. But that changed my life. It changed who I was. I realized, wait a minute, I'm not invincible. I was also blessed to have 6 mentors in my life. 5 of my friends' parents owned businesses, and my dad was a drill sergeant of the Korean War, extremely great man. And so, I had a great support system. But, my dad taught me a few things that were really important. One was, I don't care what you do with your life, just whatever you do, try to be the best. So that was huge for me, huge understanding that. And you're going to get knocked down and just get back up. Life, what I've learned, it's kind of fun because I'm still learning. 62 years old, I'm still learning all this cool stuff. But one of the biggest things I've learned from my first failure, when I lost everything with the restaurant, is it was just a blip in time. And so understanding that now, and I've used that since then for the past 20 years, because I was at 29 years old. Um, but what I've learned is, the tragedy going on in your life, whatever that may be, by the way, it's usually not as tragic as we make it be, but it could be, is just a blip in time. And so what do I mean by that? When I turned 60, I did a whole reflection of my life. It was very interesting. And I added up all the time that my life sucked. It was 3%. 3% of my life sucked. But you know what? 97% has been pretty awesome. So I don't know where I got this ability to bounce back. I've just never been a quitter. I was a star baseball player. So I did all this stuff. And to get to those places, you work hard. To be, I was scouted by the Reds and the Tigers to be signed out of high school. I chose not to do that. Played in a rock band that was very popular, pretty big in New England. Everything I've ever done has always been to another level. And many of my mentors taught me that no matter where you are, you're not there yet. There's another place to go. So if you're here, you can still go here. And I'll give you an example of that. I was in Puerto Rico with Glenn Sanford recently. Glenn's worth what, $1.5 billion right now from EXP. And he was telling me some of the stuff that he's doing. And I'm like, why are you doing that? You've done it. You got a boat. I don't think he has a plane, but you got a boat. You have all this stuff. You're worth $1.5 billion. I mean, well, he goes, you never stop growing, because when you stop growing is when you start dying. It's true. So for me, it was really just, I guess, resilience. You ask what's the most common trait? Resilience is, I don't do failure very well, I'm not employable. I couldn't get a job if I wanted to at this point. I mean, like even back then, I mean, I was employable for 2 years, right? I don't think I worked there for 2 years, a year and a half with dating service. And then I had to move on, and I had a cushy job. It was a great job, paid good money, and I'd been broke, but I still had to go risk everything and go try to do my own stuff. So, part of it's being an entrepreneur, part of it's just saying, I want my terms. So I tell people I've made millions and millions. I've lost just a little bit more, but it's always been on my terms.
So what if somebody younger than you that wanted to walk in your shoes, wanted to experience the success level that you have? What advice would you give somebody?
Your failures are your best friend. That's so most people fail and quit. And when you quit, you've truly failed. You don't actually fail. You try and then you learn. You learn by your failures. I learned more I've had 3 failures. I've learned more in my 3 failures than anything of my wins. So you're going to have bad. Things are going to suck. You're going to be down to your last penny. You might have to mortgage your house to pay the payroll. Done all those things. But if you truly believe in yourself and truly believe in that you're due to something better in life, then you just keep pushing forward. So again, knowing that it's just a blip in time. The bad times are, in fact, when I'm in a bad time now, even for the past 25 years, I know that bad time is the beginning of something wicked awesome, right? Because it's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I coach young kids. I just had one in here right before he's 27 years old, and he's great, and just he's running too many things. So that would be one other thing I'd tell you. Don't do 5 businesses at the same time. Do one and be awesome at it. And when you're really awesome at that, then hire management to run it, and then start your second business. Don't try to. That was probably, if I made my biggest mistakes, besides losing shit, was I always try to have multiple businesses. When I had my brokerage, I had 4 businesses. Right? I mean, I've always had multiple businesses, And my buddy Joe, who's the guy who taught me into real estate, worth a fortune, he's like, you got to stop doing that. He goes, don't be the jack of all trades. Go be a master of one. So I did that for real estate for a long time before I started my brokerage, and then still stayed good until I was able to build up. But now this is what I do now. I do my EXP stuff. I do my coaching, which is free, so it's not a money making thing. And my only goal now is how many lives can I impact over the next 10 years.
Mitch, this is great advice. I hope that people are listening in on this. I'm going to play this back for my son. This is the whole reason I started this podcast, is so I can learn from people like you and I can model success so that my son can pick this stuff up. So real gold that you've shared with everybody today. But I want to ask just one more question. I know you're short on time. Is there anything you would like to leave my listeners with?
So many things I could say. Always be learning. Don't ever think that you're the best at what you do because there's always somebody better, right? So get your ego out of the way. I would say that ego has damaged more people that I know than anything else because they put their ego in the way. They're not willing to listen. They're not willing to find out. They're not be a sponge. I mean, reach out. And by the way, reach out to people like me, right? Reach out to me. I'm glad to help anybody. I don't care. I help. And by the way, I help everybody in business. It doesn't matter. I do free consulting for small businesses all the time. I don't care what business you're in because business is business. Real estate is my product today, which probably till I die. But ultimately, focus on what you're doing. Be a sponge and ask people for help. Right. And I'll give you one more thing. If you're going to start a business, especially in real estate, you have to build a foundation. So every business, the one constant in all my 23 businesses I've had over my lifetime is I always built a foundation. What does that foundation look like? It's who are my customers and how do I get them? Right? Because without that, you don't have a business. Right? You can have the best model in the world, but if you don't identify who your customers and how you're going to get them, you're not. And in real estate, it's simple because we all have, well, you won't see it on a phone, but you all have enough contacts in your phone to sell as many homes a year as you want. And yet everybody chases the shiny bullets. So stop chasing shiny bullets, build a really solid foundation, be a sponge, reach out to people like myself. Because you know what successful people do all the time is we help anybody that wants to be helped. Everybody I know. I have so many friends of mine that are way more successful than me. And anybody can pick up the phone and call them and they will help you for free.
Oh, and I've witnessed that through this podcast. I reach out to people, I see that they're doing something incredible, and 9 times out of 10, people respond back. Yeah, I'd love to come on and share my story. You, same thing. I'd love to come on and share my story with you guys. So, dude, I greatly appreciate you. I love what you're doing, and you're in my mentorship line in EXP. I'm an EXP agent myself. I just started a real estate team, but so grateful for you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I can't even thank you enough.
Whatever I can do to help you, let me know. And same with anybody out there. If you need help, just let me know.
All right. I'm going to put a link in the bio to this so that you can contact Mitch, and have a blessed day.
All right, man. Take care, buddy. Be good, everybody.
Yeah, boy.